Thoughts by Benji Foley. We are the generation since the greatest generation. We have not had to do without, we've always had plenty. They did without through the years of depression and again through the years of World War II. During the Depression, if there was any money, there wasn't much to be bought. The saving grace of so many of my family was the fact that they farmed. They grew their own vegetables, they raised chickens and hogs. They had timber on the place to be cut for buildings and heating. They had cows that could be milked. They had the necessities. The only store-bought groceries were, for the most part, flour, meal, and sugar. My family was fortunate enough to have a grist mill on the farm, plus they raised their own corn to grind for meal. Grandmother told me about getting a job at the local shirt factory. She was able to obtain work, and she told of a line of women waiting for an opening. Openings happened frequently when someone couldn't meet their quota. Sometimes the ladies around them were ahead of the quota would slip some of the pieces into the stack of one who was running behind. Usually this was the person who was the sole breadwinner, or they had a sick family member. They took care of one another. One of my grandmother's sisters was a school teacher. She told of times that the three sisters would get together to sew a few dresses for the sister who taught. They would pool their talents and resources, and within one day, she has several new dresses to start school. Fabric came from pieces purchased through their work at the shirt factory. Or they would pinch pennies and buy it at the local Five and Dime, the Morgan and Lindsay's. Many times the fabric came from flour or even fertilizer sacks. It was during the Depression that the mills and factories discovered that the sacks were being made into clothing. That was when the calico sacks were introduced to give the ladies something pretty so that they could make and wear. The same thing applied during the war when it came to clothes as well as food. Money was more handy, but supplies were scarce as they were being sent for the war effort. Each person was given coupon books that were rationing books. I ran across one that my grandmother had put into her cedar chest. It had a set amount of stamps in the book for things such as tires, fuel, meat, and shoes. Granddaddy was a trucker as well as a farmer, so he needed more fuel and tires. Now, being on a farm, they didn't have to worry so much about meat. He and his family that lived in town worked out an exchange. The sisters in town didn't have cars, so they gave him the stamps for tires and fuel. Granddaddy would in turn give them the meat ration stamps and most likely something from the garden. People worked together and took care of one another. Now, the generations since the greatest generation have not had to do without. We came up in abundance. If we needed something, we jumped in the car and went to get it. How many times have you made a trip across town for groceries only to go back because you forgot something? Let's make the best out of a bad situation. You can learn to do without an abundance of things around us. Maybe it's time we cleaned out our clutter and simplified. Spend time learning how to bake something you've never made before. I think I'll try my hand at bread. Mother eats bread, and I'm honestly not wanting to go to the store and get around people for a loaf of bread. Teach your kids basic things like how to sew on a button or repair a hem that's come undone. It's a good life skill to acquire. Cut the TV off and read more. We spend entirely too much time glued to our TV and to our phones and getting brainwashed with junk when we could be immersed in a book that allows us to dream about faraway places. Maybe it's a good time to unwind and live a quieter and simpler life away from the rat race. Now, I, for one, have enjoyed not having to rush and beat the clock. The constant rushing around creates stress, and I can say this week has been one that I've not been experiencing that stress. Let's look at the silver lining. Let's spend this time improving ourselves, exploring new activities, enjoying a little more free time, since a lot of us aren't having to drive to work. Let's enjoy being able to breathe. Let's enjoy just being.